Please, what is that? Don't tell me. It's all in the Reflexes.
You're listening to All in the Reflexes, an unrepentant vivisection of geek news and culture.
It's all in the Reflexes.
With the comedy rock geek Mikey Mason, the Brack of all trades Jeb Brack, Madison Metricula Roberts, and tech guy Steve.
It's all in the Reflexes.
I know, there's a problem with your face.
Hello and welcome to All in the Reflexes. I'm Jeb Brack.
I'm Madison Metricula Roberts.
And this is Tech Guy Steve.
Oh my gosh. I know not a lot of time has elapsed in Podland, but I just got back from 2 weeks in Oregon. And it was pretty amazing. I spent 4 or 5 days at a writers' conference, and then my family came out and we went down the Oregon coast and spent a week or more riding dune buggies on massive sand dunes and looking out at the Pacific Ocean and watching sea lions, and just amazing. Just absolutely amazing. So while I was there, I had the honor and the fun to hang out with friends of the podcast, Jason Brick and his family, Noble Bear and Mrs. Bear, and I played Noble Bear's Fear the Boot card game, did some beta testing, and Matt Johnson, Mr. Elzebub on the forums, and his wife. It was awesome having friends in a foreign land like Oregon. And I was told in no uncertain terms that we had pronounced the state incorrectly when I was talking about it before. It is not Oregon or Oregon, it's Oregon. You know, like vital organs.
Like you slur it a little bit.
Yep, exactly right. And then there were all sorts of local areas and streets that we completely mispronounced. Like there was a lighthouse that we kept calling Hesita Headlights. Nope, it's Hecata Headlight. Oh well.
Like the witch.
Yeah, exactly. And then there was a street that is spelled C-O-U-C-H, but is pronounced Cooch. So, I love visiting new places. So now the wife and I can sit on the Cooch and watch TV together.
Having a heck of a good time.
Heck of a good time. Heck of a. Madison, how about you?
Well, talking about places that get pronounced different ways, so we were in Stanton, Virginia over the past weekend, and it's spelled Staunton.
Yes, as opposed to Staunton. Yes, it is Stanton.
It is Stanton. Actually, Richard and I went there for our honeymoon after we've been married about 4 years now. And so we went back, and it's lovely because it's quiet, but there's still stuff to do, and nobody knows us there. So that was really good. But we stayed in this really cute B&B that was... It used to be a coffee house on one of the little downtown streets, because there was like a little espresso knock box and stuff, and it's a 2-story little... There's like a little studio apartment thing on the top floor, and then the bottom floor is like the what used to be the coffee bar. It was adorable, but... The cool thing is we got to see a new adaptation of Jane Austen's Emma at the Blackfriars Theater with the American Shakespeare Repertory Theater there in the replica theater that they have, which was really, really cool. So it was just lovely. I love Emma just because I can go on about it, but it's one of those. It's such a fluffy thing, but it's just so nice to watch something that's not like awful and dramatic, you know. So. No, we had a very nice trip.
Very cool. Steve, what vacations have you been on?
Yeah, I have not. This university does most of its heavy lifting in the summer when the on-campus presence is the least. So I've been working very, very hard, but that's coming to an end. They go into a change freeze and the kids all come back. So my wife and I actually have a vacation scheduled next weekend. We're going up to Portsmouth or Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
That's New Hampshire. Nice. That's New Hampshire to you.
That's right. I don't know where the hobbits live, but I'm sure they're up there somewhere. Now, what I did do, and I wanted to mention, is I found a really good series on Netflix called Dark. Came out last year. It's a German TV series, 10 episodes, 1 hour each, and It's English dub on Netflix. In fact, I don't know how to get the German language version because you go through the language choices, and the only German version was a German with descriptive, whatever you call it, assistance. So they actually, tell you every single thing happening. Oh. He's walking through the woods. He trips over a stick. There's a man behind him. So I just stuck with the English dubbed version, which was fine. And I can recommend it if it's a cross between Stranger Things and True Detective.
Wow.
So very strange things begin happening in this German town whose main industry is a nuclear power plant built somewhere I think started in the 50s, but finished in the 60s. And kids go missing every 33 years and a bunch of weird stuff happens and definitely worth watching. And of course, when you get to the end, they've answered some questions, but not others. And I'm thinking, well, that's that. And I'm like, nope, they've already begun filming season 2. So.
Of course. Well, there you go. And so between Stranger Things and True Detective, I guess it is a little dark.
Yes, very dark.
Awesome. Well, let's get to some news.
And now for some more bad news. Ready?
In Memoriam this week, this has taken place a couple of weeks ago. Rick Genest, who is better known as Zombie Boy, who was in Lady Gaga's Born This Way video, died at the age of 32 as an apparent suicide. You would know him, even if you don't know his name, if you remember from the video. He had a world record number of tattoos on his body, 139 bone tattoos and 176 insect tattoos. And he really did look like a zombie the way he was tattooed. I mean, with a brain tattooed on his skull and his eyes tattooed black so that his face looks like a skull. Then, of course, this just happened right before recording. Queen of Soul Aretha Franklin passed away at the age of 76 from pancreatic cancer.
Yeah, she died in Detroit, and they said she was surrounded by her friends and family.
This kind of brings something up to me, is that I know that when there's a death like Aretha Franklin's, that everybody is very sad because somebody who has brought a lot of joy into their lives has passed away. But at the same time, she had a long, successful career and life, and as you said, passed away surrounded by friends and family. I didn't really know about Rick Genest until I read this piece as we were preparing, but boy, it seems so much sadder that a guy like this,
because he's a young person.
Yeah, he's got his career, or had a career that was in process and stretching out ahead of him, and something was deeply troubling him to have ended his own life.
Yeah, I included an interesting picture in our recording notes. He did an ad for a makeup cover-up stuff. It's if you want to cover your tats, like for an interview or a formal function or something. So they chose him because he's completely covered in tattoos.
Yeah.
And they covered his entire upper body, everything above the waist. And so it's this cool, this is what he would have looked like without all the tats. He's a good-looking guy, in my opinion. I think he's a pretty handsome young man.
And I would buy that product.
Yeah. In fact, one of the freakiest part of the commercial, I'm sure you can find it on YouTube, is they then use a makeup remover to begin removing it, revealing the tattoo again underneath.
Ooh.
But it's bizarre because he looks like a totally normal person who's like they're wiping the tattoo on him, and it's the opposite,
That's kind of cool.
It's a very cool video if you can find it.
Let's move on to some other news that's going on this week. This is not in Memoriam necessarily, but it's kind of sad. Nichelle Nichols, who played Uhura on Star Trek, the original Star Trek, and had appearances later, and she has been diagnosed with dementia. Her doctor, who has been treating her for the last 2 or 3 years, says she has moderate progressive dementia. She is 86 years old, according to IMDb. So that's kind of sad because she's been a pretty outspoken voice in the last few years for minorities in TV. And so it's, again, a sad thing to see some of your icons
exactly
suffering.
They're all getting old.
Well,
Getting sick, dying.
That's why the millennials are the next generation, y'all. You got to start getting some millennial icons.
Yeah, well, you let us know when any of them turn up, okay?
That was a very sick burn, and I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna lock it away in my grudge memory, and I will whip that back out at a time when you were not suspecting.
Yeah, starting
like his funeral.
Yeah, starting next week, we will be debuting a new segment, Millennial Icons, with Madison.
Okay.
Oh, that would be funny. I'm thinking that's the kind of stuff you save for the wake or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. We dance on your grave, old man.
Oh my god. Well, in happier news.
Yes.
I think I don't think this is controversial to say, but I hate ISIS. And I think a lot of other people also hate ISIS. And on Kickstarter, so there's an intersection of things that I care about. I both hate ISIS and love dating sims. And there is a Kickstarter live right now for a super patriotic dating simulator called F ISIS, except it's not F, it's a bleep. And I bleeped it for you, Steve, because I care.
Thank you. Yeah.
And
as of our recording, they still have 8 days left.
Yes. So, but I'm not sure if it's gonna hit or not. But the gist of it is it's created by an Iranian American woman as a satirical, sex positive subversion of patriarchal roles and sort of like some of the things that ISIS represents, because as an Iranian American, she has a lot of conflicting feelings about like her heritage and her relationship to American culture. So the game features Elodie, a 19-year-old CIA super spy who's just like any other American girl. And she's on a mission to go to the Middle East for the summer, and she has to neutralize some targets any way she can, and maybe explore her body a little on the way. And,
it's such a strange idea, man.
So my initial reaction was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so tasteless." But then you keep kind of like you go a little bit further, and it's like actually, I think that it's definitely kind of an edgy satire, but it's clearly it seems to be, to me, really clearly made in a sense of apprehension and fun, like to like this is me exploring my relationship to these things as an Iranian American woman, which was really, really cool. And then also subverting some of the gender roles, and also like the completely over the top sexualization of these male characters that she's out to neutralize. It's a lot. There is a lot going on here. But in her little description, she's like, "Oh, I wanted to make a sex positive feminist take on this genre that is often," and as when you play a lot of dating sims that are targeted toward men and women, or that have like male or female or non-binary protagonists. There's we'll get on this later, but anyway, so it's like there's a lot going on. But I play a lot of them, and it was like I would probably play this. This is very nice.
It did not sound to me like a Kickstarter. Honestly, I thought we had strayed into Madison's bargain bin games, because this sounds very much like something that you would have got on Steam,
played and then reviewed for us.
Yeah, and I may still. It's not too late.
I think you have been assigned. As long as the Kickstarter funds and they actually produce the thing, I think that you have a journalistic obligation.
Absolutely. I will neutralize, quote unquote, these members of ISIS from
the inside.
Yes, so she's trying to she's on an undercover mission. Anyway, so there's a lot going on. But actually, if you even if it doesn't get funded, I'd recommend reading the description on the game, because I think it's an interesting take on it, because it depends a lot. Like, the fact that I don't find it tasteless depends so much on the context in which it was made and why the people. So, like, it's one of those things where it's like, off the cuff, I would find it kind of tasteless, but then if you, like, after investigating some of the, like, authorial intent, I think that's a case where this contributes a lot to how the game functions. And she also mentioned, she's like, and I tried to put in a bunch of things about how, like, ISIS does not represent, like, Islam, and like all these. So like I think there's some like social commentary satire, and I would be in a way that it makes me trust that it would be that and not like something that's like incredibly tasteless. I want it to be tasteless for the sexual content, not for the social content. It's like I want tasteless, like there's I can't even read the little promotional blurbs because they're just I like you, Steve. But anyway, so I've gone on too long. But that's F-ISIS, a super patriotic dating simulator. Out on Kickstarter right now. And just
when I read through it, it sounded like actually the perfect use of satire to expose like invert expectations, reverse. Again, the power struggle. It's just exactly what I would think a really good satire is.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy, isn't the joke going to be on us when it turns out to be they're playing it straight?
Yeah.
No. ISIS recruitment tool.
Oh no,
it's
that's the darkest
it's just
timeline.
Accidentally. It's just accidentally ironic.
Oh, that would be a dark timeline.
Yeah, well, grab your avocado toast and join me in the past. Long-lost Roman library emerges in Germany after 2,000 years in darkness. And boy howdy, those late fees must be extravagant.
I've been saving that one. That was good.
Yeah.
I like that.
They say it's built 150 years after the Battle of Teutoburg Forest. Its walls currently re-emerged after centuries of darkness during the construction of a new community center. That's one of the funny problems they have in Europe. Every time you do construction, you find some ancient ruin.
That's right. Doggone it. We got to do historic preservation again.
Yep, and everything construction takes much longer.
Yeah.
In any case, it's a pretty cool pictures and an article. They talk about the history of the Teutoburg Forest battle and, how important it was and the Roman reach into, Europe and Germany. They say that it could have held up to 20,000 scrolls of parchment, but of course none of those will survive.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like these stone walls filled with dirt and mud that they uncovered, so.
Still very, very cool.
It is cool. And
just
one of those cool sentences to say, like, "Oh, we stumbled across this 2,000-year-old library." It sounds like gamer material,
Oh, 100%. That is an adventure hook right there.
Yes.
But speaking of adventure hooks, did you guys see the guy on the Stephen Colbert show?
Yes.
Manganiello, is that how you pronounce it?
So.
He's Sofia Vergara's husband, am I right?
Yes.
Yes, and an actor in his own right. You might know him from True Blood, among other things. No,
I wouldn't, but I get your point is well taken. At any
He's
rate,
a very handsome man. I just want to point that out.
Very
handsome.
He is a stone fox, and
I concur.
He came on the Colbert Show to hawk his new clothing and lifestyle brand, which is Dungeons and Dragons centered. It's called Death Saves, and so you might want to check out some of those T-shirts. It's a high fashion D&D line of clothing.
He doesn't actually have D&D because it's all protected IP.
Right.
But he says right up that it's based on the save or die rolls from old versions of D&D.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so does Stephen Colbert, who is an avowed Dungeons and Dragons player himself, or at least in the past, I don't know if he's...
he said he hasn't played it in a couple decades.
But he still remembers the lingo, and so they did the whole segment talking about role-playing games. D&D.
Yeah. It was delightful.
Manganiello does have his basement outfitted. He has a big dragon head on. They show all this in the video clip.
He's got a
and he has a regular weekly game group.
Yeah.
With famous people.
and he cast some gamer shade on Vin Diesel.
Yes.
He says,
that was a challenge. That was.
Yeah, that's right. Vin Diesel says he's a gamer. I don't know anybody that games with him.
That was. I was like, what? And Stephen Colbert's face was just like,
ooh, shots
you heard
fired.
it here first, folks.
Yeah.
Arrows launched, fireballs flung. Whoa. So it's kind of a funny segment. You may take some, if you're a purist, you may go...
Stephen actually pulls out a bag of polyhedrals.
Yeah.
Come on, he's got a dice bag.
That's right. So, yeah, I mean, it was fun, and it's good to see, that gaming is, getting more mainstream. But
Yeah.
I played D&D before it was cool, y'all.
That's right.
I
When
love
it was
how
still persecutable.
I love how they in the interview he's like, so listen, when we were growing up, Stephen Colbert, when we were growing up, it's like people thought that like playing D&D was a gateway to worshiping Satan. And
Yes.
I just want to say, I think you and I are both old enough now that we can say, yes, it was. It was so funny.
Yeah. There's also a previous segment with Sofia Vergara, and she brings this up. And she was being interviewed by Steven separately for some movie or project she's working on. And she says, oh, yeah, they play down there in the basement, and then I bring them snacks, and I feel just like a mom out of the 80s with their gaming group in the basement.
Oh, man. And can you imagine if the mom bringing you snacks was Sofia Vergara?
Oh, man, that's a lot of people's, like Stacy's mom's situations,
100%. Yep.
So, talking about beautiful ladies, Ruby Rose, the model actress, has been cast on the CW's Batwoman, which it's going to start off as I think like a cameo or crossover appearance with a big Arrowverse crossover on the CW, and it's going to be spun off to its own show, or that they're developing a standalone series around Batwoman, and so there's a couple things going on here. As far as like the show itself, I have reportedly someone that was a writer on the Vampire Diaries, which was beautiful soapy mess, is going to be a writer on the series they're developing, which I have high hopes for, because like nobody does like soapy, dramatic, paranormal stuff like the CW, right? So this could be very much in their wheelhouse, but for me, what's so we can talk about the casting. She's just a very beautiful queer actress, and
Ruby Rose.
Rose, yeah. The character of Batwoman is canonically also a lesbian, so people were like, "Oh, that's good." They people were really clamoring to actually cast a queer person.
It was a pretty big deal when DC came out with the first openly lesbian superhero character in comics some number of years ago.
I mean, it's still a pretty big deal, like, because so much of like the so much of it is kind of softened by like this like really really cutesy, or not that Batwoman isn't often sexualized in things, but it's like Batwoman, it's like, yeah, I get it, but unfortunately there's been some casting backlash.
Of course, because you can't have a thing like this without everybody picking it apart down to the tiniest detail.
Which nerds are
But
good
surprisingly,
at doing.
it's not who you think, though. If you think it's a bunch of right-wing grognards saying, I don't want women in my superheroes, that's not who it came from.
Right.
Well, it's either that or it's the ever fractally divided left and the sexual spectrum that keeps dividing itself down smaller and smaller. And if it's not that, then it's not queer enough. Or if it's not that, that doesn't count,
Right.
as
So
representation.
this is definitely a case of that. So some people are upset that Ruby Rose is too feminine, too attractive, or that she's not queer enough.
Yeah.
That was strange, because some people actually are claiming on Twitter that she's not gay, but she's been out in Hollywood for years.
Right.
I mean, this is not like I borrowed it last week in order to get this role. This is one of the things she's known for, and she's played queer characters before. This is not the first queer character.
Right.
So, but whatever. People want to rant about something.
Yeah, it's like I said. It's the way that the people of that ilk are going to be marginalized even more is because they're helping in their own marginalization by dividing off from each other rather than being the LGBTQ plus spectrum that they claim to be.
The other complaint is that the character is a Jewish woman, and Ruby Rose is not Jewish.
Okay, well that's got a little more teeth to it, I suppose. But
then you'd be trying to find a qualified Jewish lesbian actress ready to do the part.
Yep.
The physical,
and people play things that they're not all the time. It's why it's called acting.
Right.
And, it's As long as they are respectful to the kind of character, well, okay, great. Take that piece of art for what it is.
And Ruby Rose herself identifies as, at this point, as, like, gender neutral or gender fluid. But, I mean, she came out as, like, a lesbian as, like, when she was, like, 12 or 14. And, like, she's been consistently in the queer community, like you said, so vocally and so...
Yeah, I don't know how to tell you. I don't think you can be more lesbian than this.
Yeah, or more,
maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's like the 12th level of D&D or something. I just don't know the secret password.
How much more lesbian can you be? And the answer is none. None more lesbian.
One of the things I think is interesting is that in the case of Ruby Rose in particular, there has been a lot of attention and scrutinization or scrutiny of her in particular, her gender identity and the way she expresses it, like whether or not like whether she looks too androgynous at this function, or at this function she was too feminine for, or whatever, or people are like, really, there's a lot of anxiety about like what that means and what she's doing, and or some people, like, because she changes in sometimes in the way she presents publicly, depending on, I assume, like, what her preferences and moods are, like what you want to wear at any given time.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is, I think, because she's been under so much scrutiny in the media for that, it's fueling this kind of backlash. But unfortunately, she wound up leaving, another case of someone leaving Twitter because of the just torrent of backlash. So this is a case where I think it's kind of an example of the left tearing itself apart. I think it's fine to have conversations around this, but
sure,
overall, it doesn't need to be this vitriolic,
No.
Yeah.
No.
I looked through the list of things she's known for, and I haven't seen them. I stopped watching Orange is the New Black before it got to season 3. I haven't watched Pitch Perfect 3. I did not watch Return of Xander, Triple X, whatever. But I did watch John Wick Chapter 2. I love the John Wick movies. And I thought her character in that was awesome. I honestly thought that. I've watched the whole movie twice. Mm-hmm. Her character is cool, unique, is a great fighter, is really different. I'm telling you, I like that character. So when I heard that she was doing a superhero, I'm like, well, of course. She does action roles.
Yes,
she was really good as an action actress. Whatever that is, the physicality of shooting and jumping and leaping and wrestling and fighting. I mean, that's what she did.
So let us move along then into our long-awaited segments.
This will make for one epic trailer.
Yeah, let's trash and or tout trailers. And I'm thinking, speaking of running, jumping, kicking, punching.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Now, I put this one up. I don't know if you guys got a chance to watch it, but
yes.
It's Wreck-It Ralph 2, Ralph Breaks the Internet. Now, this is not really in the general thrust of movies that we tend to watch. Wreck-It Ralph wasn't a great movie. It was a fine.
I liked it.
It was fine.
Liked that movie quite a bit.
It was fine. It had Alan Tudyk. I loved that. I love Alan Tudyk in voice roles. He's great. And it was, like I said, it was fine. It didn't make me go, yeah, that's awesome. But I got this trailer because I came at it in a roundabout way. In this trailer that we've posted a link to, it has the scene where it has all of the Disney princesses in one room, all in PJs, all comparing their stories and how messed up their stories are. And there is a great speech from Merida from Brave in just the thickest Scottish brogue you ever want to hear.
I mean, they ramped it up even compared to her brogue in her own movie.
Yeah, and the joke is, the other princesses can't understand her because she's from that other studio, and that's just awesome. But the way I came at it was that things started showing up in my feed about Merida's scene from this trailer, but with Scottish tweets posted
Scottish
under
Twitter
it.
Merida has given me life. Oh, it's so good.
Read it, ya fucking weapon.
So the image of her is she's giving this exasperated speech, and there's a screen cap of her just like she's going like, like she's just got her hands up, kind of like, wah, like it's just this like really like emphatic image. And so then people are putting these little pithy things under it, like I won't try to do the brogue, but it was like,
ask the bird and Krispy Kremes for 5 Nutella donuts. And she says, have you got any nut allergies? I, pal, I'm planning suicide by donut.
Okay, I'll try it. It was like, I went through the drive-thru and I got 4 iced coffees, and she asked, I'm like, yes. And she asked me if I wanted a cup holder, and I was like, I'm not an effing octopus. Of course I want a cup holder. It was just like, oh, it was so funny. But with more awesome swears.
Yes.
True to Scottish Twitter, but.
It's hilarious, but watch the trailer first for that part so that you can have her voice in it.
And then go read the tweets.
Yeah, because it is.
I've been following, there's a Scottish Twitter Reddit, subreddit I've been following, where people, screenshot those and post them, and it's very, very, very funny.
Yeah.
It's funny because they're writing their tweets in the phonetically. That's
these dialectic representations, and it just makes it delightful.
Yeah, because it helps you then phonetically pronounce it like we just did.
So about the trailer, do you think the movie's worth watching?
Sure, why not? I mean, it doesn't look awful. And like I said, the first one was fine, but I don't have young kids anymore, so I don't know that we're going to be getting to this one in the movie theaters.
If I had friends that were, so our movie theater that we go to, it's an independent theater here, and it's across the street it's across the parking lot from a place where we go get beers and wings. And we do it's called Bada Wings, but we do what we call Bada Flicks, and we go to the Bada Wings, and we get beers and wings, and then we go see the movie, and we get more beers, and then we go back to Bada after the movie to talk about it and get more beers. So if I had friends that were going, I would probably tag along, but it's not one I might watch on my own.
Yeah. And
definitely.
It'll be on cable eventually, so...
Yeah, exactly. So, like I said, it's not the general run of the movies that we like to do on this thing, but that connection there made it. I just had to bring it up. So
that's awesome.
There we go. So let's get to some overdue reviews.
This is your review. Well, you're late.
So imagine it's 1991. All right.
Cast my mind all the way back. It was a simpler time.
If you can. People are wearing puffy shirts, piratey shirts, and they have very, parted in the middle haircuts. Imagine Kenneth Branagh, if you will, with a haircut parted in the middle and brushed back from the side. It was, but at that time, he directed a Hitchcockian noir thriller titled Dead Again. Have either of you seen this movie? Because it was one of my favorites when it came out. I thought it was just amazing. And if you watch it now, it is still amazing. Not just because of the story that it tells, which is great, but also because it was when Kenneth Branagh and Emma Thompson were still together, and they are the leads in this movie. And it has Robin Williams, Derek Jacobi, Andy Garcia, and Wayne Knight, who was Newman on the Seinfeld show. And it's a really tight thriller with a clever plot that deals with past lives intruding on the present lives of the main characters. So Kenneth Branagh is a private eye, and Emma Thompson is a woman who shows up just mute and cannot speak, and he's trying to find out who she is. And it turns out that they were connected in a past life. They were lovers, and there was a horrible murder, and that this murder may bring itself forward into the present and recreate itself. So it's a really weird, unbelievable kind of premise, but the movie takes care to bring you into it, and not sit there and go, come on.
It's a killer cast.
Yeah. Kenneth Branagh, all of those people are just great.
And they are at the height of their powers. It's really amazing. So if you have never seen Dead Again, put this on, turn out the lights, and watch this movie, because it is great. Still holds up even after all this time. The fashions, maybe a little 90s, but
I love a period piece.
but it's not so as you notice, it doesn't feel like, we're back in the 50s. So, yeah. I think that was, where Emma Thompson made it onto my list of, the top 5 actresses, that I would get a pass.
The hall pass?
Yeah, the hall pass. If they came on to me, that I would get a pass. And she's still there, I think. So, there you go.
Well,
Dead again.
Women don't come into their sexual prime until later in life anyway, so.
Yeah, and I'm on the downward slope, baby. So my wife has nothing to fear.
Well, Madison, do you have any games to review?
Big fun.
Small price.
Okay, so listen. I've talked about this particular game several times now, but that's only because they keep coming out with amazing new content. I think it might be one of my favorite games ever, Stardew Valley. It is the farming sim that just keeps on giving. So just a little brief overview. It's developed by Concerned Ape, distributed by Chucklefish, and usually it's about $10 to $15, and it was released in 2016. And now it's on Mac, PC, Linux, the Nintendo Switch, PS4, Xbox One, just everywhere. And I have played. I'm over the 300-hour mark playing this game.
Wow!
Over the course of a few years, of years of my actual physical life. Yeah, not my not like my actual life, not in-game years, because I'm only on year 5. In my main file. But the thing I want to bring up, so it's a farming simulator where it's got these Super Nintendo style 16-bit graphics. It's lovely. The last time I talked about it was when I discovered the game mods for it. So I've installed a bunch of art mods where you can turn certain buildings into different things, or you can turn your horse into a rainbow unicorn. But you move to this quiet little valley, and you meet the people, and you farm, and you explore caverns, and there's a lot of there's intrigue. But 2 weeks ago, it's been in beta, but they released a free update to the game. It's a huge content patch, and it's now just part of the base game. So if you'd already bought the game, it's just free. It adds new cutscenes, new items, new events, new festivals. And the crucial thing here is it adds multiplayer, both local, like LAN and over the internet. So it's so you can build little cabins for your friends. The cool thing is that if you have an existing single player game, you can convert it to multiplayer.
That's nice.
Yes.
That's a nice feature.
Yes, and you can easily convert it back to single player. Basically, how you convert something to multiplayer is you build a little cabin on your land, and then you give your friend a code, and they can move into that cabin. And then to end the multiplayer, you destroy the cabin. So you can easily switch back and forth, which is great. Or you can start a multiplayer game just right off the bat. I think you can have up to four people playing together at once. So you can help each other do big farming projects. You can also marry other players. You can,
really?
Yes. So you can not only now date and marry the in-game NPCs, but you can marry other players in your co-op. It's so good. It's a wonderful game anyway. I've played a lot. And like I said, 300 hours.
In the past, you've described it as a refuge from all the kind of chaos and negative news.
It's it's a very gentle game, and there's weird stuff going on. I mean, there's like this wizard who may or may not be having an affair with some. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of intrigue in this quiet little town. But like I said, I won't go on too much, but it's a lovely game, and they just added a huge new content patch with multiplayer. Which is it's just great. It's such a lovingly produced game. It has really good music. It has really good, like I said, it's very addictive. You can always play just one more in-game day, but it's a lot of fun. It's sort of a combination of like The Sims and Harvest Moon. So I cannot recommend this game enough, especially since they had this new big content patch. So Stardew Valley.
So
Cool.
we will be changing the name of your segment to Stardew Valley Games with Madison.
Yeah, basically like what new update has come out. So
That's exactly right. Well, what about you, Steve? Did you watch any weird anime while we were on hiatus?
スティーブはとってもくだらない人でアニメを見るんです。What weird anime is Steve watching this week?
Yes, a couple. First, I'll talk about Sword Guy, the animation. It's on Netflix, 2 seasons. And it has some cool ideas. Not a super huge fan of it because of the. I'll explain in a minute. The base idea is that it's a modern world, and there are these cursed weapons, and they're mostly from antique from antiquity, but they don't have to be. Most of them are swords, but not all of them. And so if a weapon is used and enough people are killed, or other special circumstances, it becomes awakened, and its purpose is to kill. But it needs a person for that, and so it fuses with a person, which they call a chrysalis, and drives them to commit murderous acts. Huh. And the person can hold out for a while, but eventually they always fail, and the weapon takes over their body, and they turn into these things called busomas, which are full of armor, steel armor, wielding the weapon and killing people. And its story is very dark. It has a lot of battles between these weapons, the Busoma, and the groups that are trying to stop them. And it's very tragic. In fact, I guess that's what I'd describe as tragedy porn. The characters are deeply tragic, and then they really get to like somebody, and then they die horribly. And then that character, I'm just saying, it's full of tragedy from top to bottom. And so it's got some, again, the idea is interesting. Some of the characters are very interesting. You really are invested in them. But you have to kind of have a tolerance for that level of tragedy. One of the negatives is 2 different art styles. When they're drawing backgrounds and people, they use the normal anime art style, kind of flat, hand-drawn, whatever. When they switch to the Busomas in their full weapon mode, it's 3D modeling. And so all of a sudden they have these shiny metal 3D models moving around the environment. And so of course none of the Busoma who are fully armored have faces. They all have kind of these face masks and grills or whatever, like they're a suit of armor, like full plate armor. And it's so that they don't have to draw that. So the animation that renders it.
Render that, yeah.
Yeah. So they to get out of the uncanny valley, they don't render the human face in that mode. On the other hand, they still move around, and the movement has the same uncanny valley effect.
Oh, no.
Where you're like, that's not really how a human being walks.
Not like this.
Yeah. So you kind of have to tolerate that, because again, when it's in anime mode, looks like every other anime, works perfectly, great characters. Then they switch to this battle mode, and you're like, oh, that's kind of weird. Okay, enough time spent on that. That Sword Guy, if you're into that, it's worth watching. The one I really want to talk about, I'm watching on VRV, that VRV.co, which means it's also on Crunchyroll.
It's called Crunchyroll.
Yeah, I'm on fancy Crunchyroll. The Master of Ragnarok and Blesser of Anhurjar. That's the name of the series. It's ongoing, so I've caught up with what they produce. I have to wait weekly as they come out. It has one of the coolest ideas. Total, fantasy trip, power fantasy. So there's this magical mirror, and it, I don't know why the boy has it. It must be in the manga that came out before the anime, because I swear the anime kind of begins halfway through, which is weird. But there's this magical mirror, and a sorceress in another world summons a protector for her tribe through the mirror, and it yanks this 16-year-old boy out of modern-day Japan. So it's another one of these.
I love that premise. I just love it.
Yes, that's why I like watching them. I try to find a bunch of them on Crunchyroll and watch them. So the difference is a couple, because the mirrors connect him between the two worlds, and so he actually has cell signal when he's in the room with the mirror, and he can talk to his girlfriend. And the sorceress who brought him over doesn't know how to put him back. So he's stuck there until she can figure out how to reverse the spell. Okay, so he's got his smartphone. He also figures out that this quote-unquote other world is almost certainly somewhere in northern Europe between 1300 and 900 BC.
Okay.
So he doesn't
from
really,
context clues.
Yes, he doesn't really think he's on a different planet. He also knows that the stars are the same. So he knows he's not on a different planet. He's almost certainly somehow in the past. But they do have a form of magic called runes. Anyways, so he uses his smartphone and looks stuff up. And they're not saying it's Wikipedia, but wink, wink, it's Wikipedia. And so he's conquering all these other regions because he keeps borrowing from history. So he introduces stirrups so they have improved cavalry.
Oh god!
He introduces this hand grinding mill to increase bread production so he can feed more of the people.
This is
And he just keeps looking this stuff up. And what's cool is in the anime they'll actually have a set screen. What do you call it? Like a card come up during one of the commercial breaks. Or where a commercial would be inserted if this was on regular TV. And it'll explain about the technology.
Oh my
here's the history of the stirrup, the people who first developed it, and why it was important.
An educational bumper card.
Yes, that's exactly what they're doing.
That reminds me so much of... Did you guys ever watch Mysterious Cities of Gold? It's like an old school anime that was educational, and it was about the Spanish conquistador era in South America. But it was all unintentionally educational. And then they had little segments like that. It was just I love that. This is delightful.
Well, it is such a cool idea.
But what I like about it is that there's always been that trope that if the Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court, somebody goes back to the past and uses modern knowledge to influence it and become powerful and whatnot. But what they mostly always get wrong is that if you or I or anybody like us got transported to the past, we would be out of luck because we don't even know how to make the technology that we're using now.
To do it. Yeah,
and I only would have the vaguest idea of things like gunpowder. It's wait a minute, I know there's a formula. I remember that because I looked it up when I was a kid. But here, he's got Wikipedia, which is what I would do to figure that stuff out.
He just looks it up. Yeah.
Here, let me some Google of the other things for you.
He's introduced glass blowing techniques. The series begins, episode 1, he introduces the Roman phalanx for their soldiers so they beat the other side. The last episode I was able to watch, he's talking about state-sponsored public education. Mm-hmm. And then during the battles, he's constantly quoting from generals of history, like this famous Chinese general, this famous Japanese general. And he will come out and admit it, all these people, you're brilliant, you're the most brilliant tactician, and I don't know where you come up with all these crazy technologies. I cheat. He keeps telling them, I cheat. I borrowed it. I cheat.
And they just don't understand.
But it doesn't mean anything to them. Yeah.
Right, because they can't use that smartphone. They have no idea how he's coming up with the ideas.
It is such cool. And it's another one of these harem where he ends up with 12 girls around him. They're all beautiful and want to marry him. But he can't marry any of them because he's saving himself for his girlfriend in Japan, who he hopes to one day get back to.
Aww.
You're okay. But it's a pretty cool series. I just love the idea. 16-year-old boy conquers the world with the help of Wikipedia.
Yeah.
That's worth $10 donation, by the right.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that's right. Because in Connecticut Yankee, the guy that goes back in time is a manufacturing foreman in a factory.
Okay.
And so he has the knowledge of how to physically make things.
Yeah.
He was a very intelligent guy with a lot of, knowledge right there. The one thing that I always was a little weird about is that he knew when the next solar eclipse was going to be.
Yeah.
And I thought that it was come on.
Mighty convenient after this time travel.
That's right. That you remember when there's going to be a solar eclipse in the Middle Ages? Come on.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
But at the same time, he was a guy with knowledge. Whereas you drop your average schmo from today in the past, they're gonna basically
helpless, hapless.
Yeah. Gosh, I just remember reading a story like that in a anthology of time travel stories where this dude comes back, is transplanted in the past in a Viking area like that, but he totally loses because he gets all of the rituals and social cues completely wrong, and so they kill him. No, I have knowledge. I can help you make this. Really? How? Well, I don't remember, but so you're a liar. We're going to kill you.
I want to point out that there was an episode back in Postcards from the Dungeon in which we interviewed a historian, and I talked to him specifically about that question, like if the Library of Alexandria hadn't burned, would we really have more, more technology, or could you? He's like, no. At first, the library was almost certainly full of philosophy and history,
right?
Which is good and valuable, but it's not engineering. And then he said it's the Dark Ages weren't because people had lost the technology. He goes, that was only a very, very small part of it. It was because there was no centralized government to compel people to do the work, to pay the tax, collect taxes, pay workers to build the aqueducts.
Right.
You have to have a large infrastructure to do that. You can't do that as tiny little city-states and hamlets.
Right.
So it was so interesting. He said, like, a lot of, he said, specifically geeks love the idea that, like, armed with an encyclopedia, you could conquer the world in 1200. He goes, you couldn't get anyone to follow you. You couldn't raise an army.
Like,
you have no ability to pay them.
What are you saying?
Yeah.
But what's great,
super cool.
Yeah, what's great about the show that you're talking about is that the people there are so desperate that they have summoned somebody specifically to help them, and then they listen to him.
Yes, exactly. And he even says, like, I don't even know how I understand them because they speak a different language, but we all talk.
Yeah.
So, like, there's a lot of hand-waving going on here.
And I'm fine with that. Yeah,
totally. Oh, that's all. Well, we have gone on pretty long since it's our first time on the mics in a while.
I missed you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. We're having a great time. And so we're going to continue this over on There's a Problem with Your Face right after we wrap up here. You can go over there and listen to even more stuff, and we will actually say the swear words in the Scottish tweets, and you can hear all of that firsthand. Steve, how do they find us?
Go to our website, aitrpodcast.com. Every show has full show notes with links to the mentioned media and the game that Madison reviews, plus links to our social media like Twitter, Facebook, and Patreon. Patreon, $1 a month, twice the content. It's a hootenanny.
Absolutely. So join us for that. In the meantime, I'm Jeb Brack.
I'm Madison Metricula Roberts.
And this was Tech Guy Steve.
We'll catch you next time.